You trusted with your whole heart. You gave what felt like your soul. You thought it was love. But what you received, it was something else. A performance maybe, an illusion, a mask of affection worn by someone who never intended to hold your heart with care. And now you're left in ruins, not just hurt but confused, ashamed, and worst of all, blaming yourself. Why? This is not just your story. It's our story. A story repeated across time, across cultures, written in the invisible ink of human vulnerability. You gave love, and in return, you got pain dressed as passion. The tragedy? You started to believe that the betrayal was your fault. But here's a question that might shake the very ground you stand on. What if your only mistake was being honest in a dishonest world? Let's begin this journey not by looking outward at them, but inward at you, not to blame, but to understand. Because philosophy and psychology, when combined, don't just describe the world, they help us survive it. Sigmund Freud once said, "We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love." And yet, we keep doing it. Why? Because to love is to be human. But when that love isn't returned in truth, it doesn't just hurt, it reshapes your identity. Fake love is a distortion. It mimics the real thing so well that your mind struggles to distinguish it. It flatters you, it draws you in with intensity, and then it disappears, or worse, it stays and poisons slowly. You begin to question your worth, your judgment, your sanity. The person who said they loved you now makes you feel like you're too much, too sensitive, too emotional. And so you begin to turn the dagger inward. But ask yourself this: if someone hands you a poisoned cup, do you blame yourself for drinking, or do you question why they offered it at all? Blaming yourself becomes a coping mechanism. It gives you the illusion of control. Because if it was your fault, then maybe you can fix it. Maybe if you were prettier, quieter, stronger, more chill, they would have stayed. But that's the trap. That's how fake love keeps its power over you, by making you believe that their failure to love was your failure to be lovable. But here's the truth: you are not hard to love. They were incapable of loving. Let's go deeper. Nietzsche once said, "He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises." That's the paradox of self-blame. Even in your suffering, you're still trying to assert control over the chaos. But control is not healing. Insight is. Self-awareness is. And what you need now is to confront the raw reality. You were hurt because you were real in a world full of people pretending.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Do you remember the red flags you ignored? The gut feelings you silenced? The way your body tensed around them, but your mind made excuses? That wasn't weakness. That was your intuition screaming through the fog of illusion. But when you're in love or think, you negotiate with your own soul. You trade pieces of yourself for crumbs of attention. And when it all collapses, the silence is deafening. You're left asking, was it all a lie? Or was I just blind? Here's a haunting truth. Maybe it was both. Maybe they used you to fill their emptiness. Maybe they needed your love to feel alive, but didn't know how to return it. Maybe they mirrored you so well that you fell in love with your own reflection. And when they withdrew, it felt like losing yourself. That's the cruelty of fake love. It doesn't just abandon you, it erases you. But you're still here, breathing, thinking, hurting. And that means something. That means the story isn't over. Soren Kierkegaard wrote, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." So let's try to understand. Let's dissect the anatomy of your pain, not to dwell, but to evolve. Psychologically, What you experienced may have been emotional manipulation, gaslighting, love bombing, or narcissistic abuse. These are not just buzzwords. They are real psychological tactics used to gain control over someone's emotions. But here's the thing. They only work on people who lead with empathy, people like you, people who believe in the good in others. So maybe, just maybe, your suffering is not a sign of weakness but a sign of depth. You love deeply, you believe sincerely, you hoped radically, and for that you're punishing yourself. But let's flip the lens. The fact that you feel this much, that you care this deeply, that's not a flaw. That's your gift. The world needs more people like you, more people who risk everything for love. But you must learn to protect that gift. You must learn when to give it and when to guard it. Let's pause here and ask something terrifying. What if the person who broke you was never capable of love to begin with? Not because you failed, but because they never learned how to feel, because they feared intimacy, because they saw your love not as a blessing, but as a threat to their emotional control. And in response, they did what the emotionally immature always do. They ran, they lied, they blamed. And still, here you are, wondering what you did wrong. This is where philosophy can save you. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. You keep revisiting the past, not to remember them, but to punish yourself. You replay every conversation, every touch, every silence. But the past is a place of reference, not residence. The longer you stay there, the more you bleed." So how do you move forward? First, stop romanticizing what hurt you. The person who left you broken was not your soulmate. They were your teacher. They taught you what manipulation looks like, what emotional starvation feels like, what self-abandonment costs. But you don't owe them your continued suffering. You owe yourself a return to wholeness. Second, reclaim your narrative. You are not a victim of love. You are a survivor of illusion. And survivors have wisdom. What did this pain teach you about boundaries, about self-worth, about the danger of giving too much too fast? These are not just questions, they're mirrors, and the answers will shape who you become next. Third, forgive yourself, not because you were wrong, but because you were human, because you were trying, because love makes fools of us all, and that's okay. To love is to risk. To risk is to live. And you, my friend, were brave enough to live. Let that be your legacy, not the pain, but the courage behind it. And here's a radical idea. What if the pain you're carrying isn't just yours? What if you are feeling generations of emotional neglect, ancestral wounds, societal myths about love that have been fed to us since birth? What if your healing could ripple across time? That's not poetic, that's psychological truth. The way you choose to heal now could redefine the way your future self and even your future children experience love. We're nearing the edge of a cliff here, and I need to ask one final deep question before we continue. If you've survived fake love, if you've walked through that fire and still have the capacity to feel, what else are you capable of? What kind of love could you create now, not just for others, but for yourself? This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your rebirth. You are not broken. You are breaking open. Let's continue where we left off. You survived what was meant to destroy you, and yet the scars remain not always visible, but deeply embedded in your psyche. You question your worth, your ability to trust, even your own perception of reality. But let me ask you something right now. What if the very pain you're trying to avoid holds the key to your liberation? There's a strange paradox in healing. The more you try to run from the pain, the more power it has over you. But when you turn and face it, truly embrace it, it begins to lose its grip. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What you call bad luck in love might actually be a pattern rooted in your unconscious beliefs about yourself. And fake love, it thrives in the soil of those unexamined wounds. So what does this mean for you? It means that healing isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about understanding why it hurt so deeply and what it revealed about who you are. The betrayal wasn't just about them lying to you. It was about you abandoning yourself in the process. You saw the signs, you felt the shift, but you stayed, you hoped. You gave more than you had. You made their comfort more important than your clarity. But now you have a choice. You can either continue to blame yourself, or you can begin the process of radical self-ownership. Not self-blame, self-ownership. That means taking responsibility for your healing, for your truth, for your future. It means asking the questions no one else can answer for you. Like, what part of me believed that I had to earn love by suffering for it? This is the shadow work. This is where psychology meets spirituality. You uncover the wounded parts of yourself, the child who was never seen, the teen who was rejected, the adult who became addicted to validation. And you don't shame those parts. You hold them. You listen to them. You become the protector you never had. Because fake love didn't just break your heart, it exposed where you had already been bleeding. As you peel back the layers of your pain, you'll begin to see something unexpected. Compassion. Not for them, for you. You weren't stupid. You weren't weak. You were simply unaware. And now you're not. That awareness is your superpower. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." But the examined life, that's where freedom begins. Let's talk about trust. After fake love, it feels impossible to trust again, not just others, but yourself. You feel like your radar is broken, like your intuition betrayed you. But here's the truth, it didn't. You just weren't taught to trust it. You were taught to prioritize others' comfort over your own instincts. And now your work is to rebuild that trust, not with them, but with you. Start small. Trust yourself to say no, to walk away, to pause before giving, to choose peace over intensity. Because real love will never feel like chaos. It will feel like chaos. It will feel like coming home, not to someone else, but to yourself. And here's something most people won't tell you. You don't have to hate the person who gave you fake love in order to heal. In fact, holding on to resentment keeps you energetically tied to them. Forgiveness is not about excusing their behavior, it's about reclaiming your power. It's saying, you no longer get to live in my mind rent-free. That's not weakness, that's emotional genius. But forgiveness starts with forgiving yourself for not knowing better, for staying too long, for giving too much, for hoping when you should have walked. You were doing your best with the tools you had, and now you're building a new toolbox, one filled with boundaries, discernment, self-respect, and unshakable self-love. Let's anchor this with a deep question. What if the pain you're trying to escape is actually the doorway to your most authentic self? What if everything that broke you was simply clearing space for something truer, deeper, more aligned with your soul? There's a Japanese art called kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The cracks aren't hidden, they're celebrated. Visible proof that something can be broken and still be more beautiful because of it. What if that's you? Think about how much you've learned. You now know what manipulation looks like. You know what it feels like to lose yourself. You know how dangerous it is to abandon your intuition. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And wisdom is what transforms pain into power. But that transformation doesn't happen passively. It requires you to choose healing over habit, truth over illusion, growth over comfort. One of the hardest things to accept is that the person who hurt you may never apologize. They may never own their part, and that's okay. Healing is not a group project, it's a solo pilgrimage. You don't need their closure, you need your own. And that begins the moment you stop asking why they did it and start asking, what did this experience awaken in me? Maybe it awakened your voice, your anger, your silence, your creativity, your boundaries, your truth. Whatever it awakened, honor it. Because the version of you that survived this is stronger than the one who entered it. This isn't just recovery, it's rebirth. Let's make it practical. Start a journal and write letters you'll never send. Get the poison out of your system. Meditate, breathe, cry, scream if you need to. Join a support group. Speak to a therapist. Cut off contact with people who drain your spirit. Feed your soul with books, nature, art, movement. These are not distractions, they are medicine. And when you're ready, only when you're ready, begin to love again. But this time, start with yourself. Not the performative self, not the people-pleasing self, but the raw, unfiltered, unapologetic you. The you who doesn't chase love but attracts it by being whole. The you who doesn't settle for breadcrumbs because you finally remembered you are the feast. René Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." But we might go further and say, "I heal, therefore I become." You are becoming something extraordinary, not because of what was done to you, but because of what you choose to do with it. So here's the final question, the one that could change everything. If fake love broke you, but you're still here, still breathing, still feeling, still learning, what does that say about the strength of your spirit? What does that say about your ability to love again, but this time without losing yourself in the process? You are not your wounds. You are not your past. You are not someone's failure to see your worth. You are the one who survived, the one who woke up, the one who decided that breaking wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Fake love broke you, yes, but it also revealed the parts of you that were waiting to be reclaimed. And now you get to decide how the story ends, not with blame, not with shame, but with power, with truth, with the unshakable realization that everything you were seeking in them was always waiting to be discovered in you. The most beautiful part. The next time love arrives, real love, you'll meet it not as someone desperate to be chosen, but as someone who has already chosen themselves. That's not just healing. That's transformation, and it starts now.